Hello everyone, Beate here and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about how to make your clothes last longer. Whether you are extremely price sensitive and you want your clothes to really, you want to get your bang for your buck out of each item and you don't want to buy new clothing every week or season even or every year. Or you might be in a different place where you are into sustainable clothing, sustainable fashion, and you are consumed by this whole movement, which is also a great movement to be a part of, or at least I think so. If you want to make your clothing last longer, this is the video for you. Like with most of my videos, timestamps will be down below, so if you want to skip forward to a certain part or see what is actually in this video, the contents thereof, please do look at the description box. Function meets form. With that I mean some things are created for a specific purpose, for a specific activity, for instance. So what I would like to encourage you to do is to think a moment before you use a certain item for a specific activity. And I do understand that's a little bit counterintuitive because a lot of you might want to use one thing for everything, right? It's having less, actually caring for what you have so you can use it for every single activity in your life. And although that is something I think that is very important, I do think it is important to consider that some things aren't made for a specific activity. Let me give you a few examples. I once bought a type of a winter snow boot, and I was quite desperate to use them in normal winter without wet, snowy conditions. But what I did not consider is the fact that their soles, the rubber, is actually made for walking on a specific type of surface, so it grips actually into the snow. And I walked with them in normal, I want to say dry winter climate, and I walked through those soles within something like a month and a half. They actually had like small holes and things in them, and it was a high quality shoe. So I did not use the shoes for the correct activity. And another example would be, for example, a white pair of linen trousers. Beautiful, some of my favorite things to wear. It's extremely sustainable. Linen is a great sustainable fabric. But if you're gonna wear that to a picnic where you are gonna be sitting on the grass without a picnic blanket, and you're probably just going to get stains on it like really fast, and you might struggle to get those out. So although it might be a very high quality boot or a very sustainable pair of trousers, make sure you use it for the correct activity, because if you don't use it for the correct activity, you're going to wear through it much faster. So function meets form. Consider whether that handbag or backpack can handle rainy weather conditions. So if you know you're expecting rain that day, don't wear your favorite bag outside. You don't want that leather to become soaking wet, for example. If you are using it that day, can it actually fit the activities that you are going to do? The cleaning of clothing can often contribute to the wear and tear thereof. So you need to know that whenever you wash a garment with soap, water, and then obviously heat by drying it, whether that's the sun or the tumble dryer, it all contributes to breaking down that garment. So the fibres, the actual fibres, they're almost like small little strings of yarn that form that garment, goes through much more friction, and therefore those fibres break down. So if a garment does not need a wash, don't wash it. And if it's something like a larger garment and there's only like a small little spot on it, for example, you had a little bit of chocolate and there might be a small little chocolate stain, I recommend just putting that, small little area underneath the tap with a bar of soap. I really love this one stain hand washing bar of soap that I'll insert, and give that small area a quick little rub and get rid of the spots and let it dry, instead of throwing that entire garment into the wash. So only wash when necessary. While we're talking about cleaning clothing, don't over soap your clothes. I've sometimes seen people take the bag of detergent and literally throw the entire area full of soap, and it's really not necessary. If you read the back of the package, you'll see they suggest how much soap to use. And I must tell you, I often use less soap than what they recommend, because they obviously want you to buy their product, so they want you to go through it maybe at a faster rate, or not everybody cares as much. So I try and use a little bit less, and if I think, oh Beate, this is not clean, maybe next time use the recommended amount, then I'll use the recommended amount. But if you over soap your clothes, you will actually get rid of the color within the clothing at a much faster rate. So don't over soap your clothes. And then let's talk about drying of clothing. I recently moved to the States, and I understand that the States, they love their tumble dryers, and I used to dry my clothing outside. At the moment I live in a smaller place and it's not easy to do so. And I must say, I think the neighbors are also judging me a little, so I don't do it anymore. But I do dry my clothes inside, and I know it's inconvenient, and if you can, I recommend drying your clothing indoors on a foldable laundry rack. That's what I do, and only the bedding now goes into the dryer. And if I use the dryer, so extremely important, I use it on the very, very low setting. So my heat is on the lowest setting, and I also use these dryer bowls. They are much better for the environment and for your clothing than the dryer sheets. The dryer bowls are really amazing, and they dry the sheets at a much faster rate, which means it spends less time in the dryer. And that is what I want. I don't want it to be in the dryer for too long, because again, those fibers breaks down with the heat and the friction. So I minimize the amount of things I put in the dryer, and if I put it in, I use the dryer balls. Another thing with washing that I honestly can promise you and tell you works so well is splitting colors. I know some people think it's an absolute myth, but I can promise you I've tried it so many times, and I can tell you splitting your colors makes a massive difference. I actually bought a laundry basket that actually separates it you know, from the get-go, and I love it because it saves me time. So whenever I take my clothes off, I already pop it in the correct pile, and that way it's already split. If you have a lot of colors and a lot of patterns and mixture of colors in your wardrobe, I do recommend, if you can, again, having a third pile for, you know, I call them mixed colors, where it's like, for example, a striped t-shirt. And if you don't do that, that is completely fine. Then I will go with the dominant color in the pattern and decide whether it goes in the light pile or the dark pile. Also, as a rule of thumb, know that your lights can go in at a higher temperature when being washed, and your darks can go in at a cooler temperature when being washed. While we're on the topic of drying clothes, if you have the opportunity to actually dry your clothing outside, especially your whites, please do so. The sun actually helps keep your whites whiter, and it works extremely well. I can't do it at the moment, but hopefully sometime in the near future I will be able to start doing that again. Sometimes clothing needs a little bit of TLC. Whether it's extremely high quality or low quality, a button comes loose, a thread pulls loose, a zipper breaks, or something of that nature. And for that reason, I always recommend getting a tailor. If you can do this yourself, it's probably going to be much cheaper, and I would recommend doing that. Or if you have an aunt, a niece, a nephew, somebody who knows how to sew, maybe ask them and, I don't know, cook them a meal so that they can fix those small things for you, because you don't need a tailor or, you know, very high expertise for just sewing back a button. But just do it. Just fix an item if there's a small little mistake with it. And sometimes if you lose a button and you don't have something to replace it, I've seen wonderful examples of when people took a beautiful coat and they replace it with a completely different button. It makes such a beautiful difference. It completely changes the garment. So if there's a small mistake, rather fix it than just throw it out or donate it, especially if you still like wearing it. Small imperfections can easily be fixed. And while we're talking about tailors, sometimes you have something in your closet and you just don't wear it as often as you wanted to, or as often as you thought you would. Going to a tailor and asking them to change something about it that is bothering you can make the world of difference. Growing up, my sister and I, we used to take like arms full of clothing, usually hand-me-downs, to a tailor. And if I say a tailor, this wasn't like a fancy smancy tailor. This was just someone who worked from their home and did a lot of sewing. And we asked this lady, how can we fix it? Can we make the dress a little bit shorter? Can we cut off the sleeves and make it a sleeveless dress, for example, or change it up in a way that suits our bodies better? And I promise you, we love doing it, because once you have all of the clothing back, you have an entire new wardrobe to wear. And sometimes making small changes like that can really help you wear that item for a couple of extra years. So do not neglect a tailor, and don't think it's only reserved for, fancy clothing or something that's really special. Sometimes changing a simple summer dress can make the world of difference. This video won't be complete without mentioning that it might be time for you to start buying better clothing. And I know not everybody wants to hear this, but actually ditching fast fashion and avoiding the temptation, it's almost like a sweet that you want to say no to. And sometimes it's so hard because it's so easy to buy something because it's marketed so freaking beautifully, and it's at a price point that doesn't hurt too much. But avoiding fast fashion and rather saving for something of higher quality can really help you have a closet that lasts longer. Shopping and fast fashion can be a little bit of almost an addiction, and it can be very difficult to avoid it. So rather start unsubscribing to too many promotional emails. Don't go in when there's a sale, especially at a fast fashion brand, and rather try and be focused in your shopping, be focused in what you want, and buy better quality items, or at least the best quality you can afford. And then the way you store your clothing is very, very important. If you store your things correctly, they will definitely last longer. A simple thing to do at the end of the day is if something is not filthy, it is not going in the wash, fold it up real quick and don't leave it all bundled up, because it's going to lose its shape in the long run, especially for things with quite a lot of structure to it. For example, a coat. Make sure you put a coat on a hanger. Take those jeans, fold them up real quick. Don't leave things, in a pile, because it's really just going to disform that item. Talking about hangers, make sure for heavier items such as coats, you always put them on a hanger with proper support for your shoulders. If you put some items on a hanger, just like a normal thin hanger, you're actually going to get those shoulders where it looks all pointy and it really doesn't look good. It's also just going to stretch out the fabric and it's going to lose its shape. Don't spend money on having a coat and then just not take care of it, right? Buy some of those hangers and make sure you use them for your heavier items. Talking about hanging things, don't hang any knits. Oftentimes you'll see knitwear, I don't know why they do this, but in stores, they will hang up all of the sweaters and things, or a merino wool or a cashmere knit, and I understand why they do that, because it's easier to look at, it's probably prettier, but it gives people the idea that you can hang knits, and I really discourage you to do that, because again, a knit, because of the way the fabric is actually made by like looping threads, you can actually stretch out that item and it's going to lose its shape if you hang it on a hanger. Knits need to be folded, so ensure again that you store your knits correctly. Talking about knitwear, and especially animal hair, I'm talking about wool and cashmere, mohair, and all of those wintry goodness. Not that you can't wear them in summer. When you have those, they do have a tendency to get or attract bugs and moths and get small little holes. So if you want to take care of those better, please ensure that you protect them from these bugs. And you don't need those stinky, very smelly balls. You can actually use lavender. That is my preferred method. And I will have them in small little sachets or little cotton bags. That's what I use. Or I use soaps. So a nice, wonderful fragranced soap. Again, don't have not an empty, but an open soap. Don't put that in your cupboard because the oil from the soap can actually go onto your clothing, and you don't want that. That's going to cause oil stains. Ensure that it's still within its container, but that it actually gives off a fragrance. I usually like the ones that are wrapped in paper, so you can still smell the fragrance, but the oil won't go through the paper, and I can put them all over my knitwear because most of my knitwear is made out of animal hair, so that's why I put them there. Or you can use cedar balls. I've only recently started using them, and so far so good. So you can buy cedar balls and you can put them in between your things. It's also going to help you keep those nasty little bugs away from your clothing and have them go somewhere else. While we're talking about storage and folding and so forth, if you change up your wardrobe like most people do from a winter to a summer wardrobe and then you have to do the switch around again, I recommend using cotton bags and not plastic bags. Sometimes the plastic bags can actually cause your items to actually not breathe because the air can't go through the plastic and cause discoloration in clothing. So I recommend buying big cotton bags and putting your clothing in that with some of these cedar balls and storing your clothes like that. I just did that last week with my winter to summer clothing change up, and I must say it was really lovely doing it and getting my cupboard all sorted again for summer. It's making me very excited. Also, when you store clothing, make sure that the clothes are actually clean and washed and laundered, because if it's filthy, the stain will actually spread further into your clothing, and it might be more difficult to get it out, especially things like armpits, for example. It will become even more yellow and just not look good at all. So make sure when you store clothing that it's actually clean, especially when you're going to be storing it for a long period of time, for example over the entire winter or the entire summer. That is all from me today. I really hope that this video can help you make your clothing last longer. If you feel I missed anything, please do let me know down below. And if you like these types of videos and you want to check out more of the things that I have, go look at some of my playlists. I have quite a couple of a variety of different things that I talk about. And click the like and subscribe button. I'd love to have you here. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.